The outcast. The fluorescent lights of Outpost Sigma 9 buzzed incessantly, a grating reminder of the station's aging infrastructure. Zara hunched over her workstation in a cramped maintenance bay, her slender fingers deftly manipulating the delicate circuitry of a malfunctioning power converter. At just 17, she was the youngest technician on the station, though few knew her true age. Fewer still knew her true nature. Zara's skin shimmered with an iridescent sheen, catching the harsh light as she worked. Her eyes, slightly too large for her face, were a striking violet, a stark contrast to her shock of white hair. These features marked her as neither fully human nor fully Andromedan, but a hybrid of both species. In a galaxy where purity of bloodline was prized above all else, Zara was an aberration, a living reminder of a forbidden union. As she soldered the final connection, a voice crackled over the intercom. "Hey, freak. Chief wants that converter fixed 10 minutes ago. Stop daydreaming and get it done." Zara flinched at the insult, but didn't respond. She was used to the taunts, the sideways glances, the not-so-subtle way people avoided touching her. On a station of 5,000 souls, she was utterly alone. With a sigh, she closed up the converter's casing and hefted it onto her shoulder. The device was nearly as big as she was, but years of hard labor had made her stronger than she looked. As she made her way through the winding corridors of Sigma 9, she kept her eyes down, avoiding eye contact with the other residents. "Watch it, half-breed," a burly human technician growled as he shouldered past her, nearly knocking her off balance. Zara gritted her teeth and pressed on. The control room was a hive of activity when she arrived. Screens flickered with data streams, and the air was thick with the chatter of technicians and the beeping of various systems. Chief Engineer Raxon, a grizzled veteran with more cybernetic parts than original ones, glowered as Zara approached. "Took you long enough," he grunted, snatching the converter from her grasp. "Maybe if you were a pure blood, you'd work faster." Zara felt her cheeks burn with shame and anger. "I fixed it in half the time it would take anyone else," she muttered. Raxon's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her. "What was that?" "Nothing, sir," Zara said quickly, averting her gaze. The chief engineer snorted and turned away, already barking orders at another technician. Zara slipped out of the control room, eager to retreat to the solitude of her tiny quarters. As she walked, her mind drifted to the circumstances of her birth. Her mother, Dr. Ilara Chen, had been a brilliant xenobiologist on a mission to study the reclusive Andromedans. Her father, Zorn, was an Andromedan scholar fascinated by human culture. Their love had been genuine, their union a bridge between two worlds. But the galaxy wasn't ready for such a union. When Zara was born, both human and Andromedan authorities had been outraged. Her parents were separated, their careers ruined. Zara was shuffled from one foster home to another until she ended up on Sigma 9, a forgotten outpost on the fringes of human space. Lost in thought, Zara didn't notice the group of young engineers rounding the corner until it was too late. She collided with one of them, a stocky human named Bren who had made it his personal mission to make her life miserable. Well, Bren sneered, shoving her back. "If it isn't the station mascot. What's wrong, freak? Antenna not picking up our brainwaves." His friends laughed, forming a circle around her. Zara's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "Leave me alone, Bren. I'm just trying to do my job." "Your job?" Bren's face twisted with disgust. "Your job is to not exist. You're an abomination, you know that. You shouldn't even be alive." Something snapped inside Zara. Years of pent-up frustration and anger boiled to the surface. "I have every right to be here," she hissed, her violet eyes flashing. "I work harder than any of you. I'm smarter than all of you combined. And one day, I'll prove it." For a moment, silence fell over the group. Then Bren laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Listen to it, boys. The little freak thinks she's people." He stepped closer, towering over her. "You'll never be one of us. You'll never belong anywhere. You're nothing but a mistake. Zara felt something stir within her, a strange energy she'd never felt before. Her vision blurred, and for a split second, she swore she saw tendrils of light dancing around her fingers. But before she could process what was happening, Bryn shoved her hard. She stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet. As she fell, her head struck the edge of a nearby console with a sickening crack. Pain exploded behind her eyes, and the world went dark. Raxon's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her. What was that? Nothing, sir, Zara said quickly, averting her gaze. The chief engineer snorted and turned away, already barking orders at another technician. Zara slipped out of the control room, eager to retreat to the solitude of her tiny quarters. As she walked, her mind drifted to the circumstances of her birth. Her mother, Dr. Ilara Chen, had been a brilliant xenobiologist on a mission to study the reclusive Andromedans. Her father, Zorn, was an Andromedan scholar fascinated by human culture. Their love had been genuine, their union a bridge between two worlds. But the galaxy wasn't ready for such a union. When Zara was born, both human and Andromedan authorities had been outraged. Her parents were separated, their careers ruined. Zara was shuffled from one foster home to another until she ended up on Sigma-9, a forgotten outpost on the fringes of human space. Lost in thought, Zara didn't notice the group of young engineers rounding the corner until it was too late. She collided with one of them, a stocky human named Bryn who had made it his personal mission to make her life miserable. Well, Bryn sneered, shoving her back. If it isn't the station mascot. What's wrong, freak? Antenna not picking up our brainwaves. His friends laughed, forming a circle around her. Zara's heart raced, but she stood her ground. Leave me alone, Bryn. I'm just trying to do my job. Your job. Bryn's face twisted with disgust. Your job is to not exist. You're an abomination. You know that. You shouldn't even be alive. Something snapped inside Zara. Years of pent-up frustration and anger boiled to the surface. I have every right to be here, she hissed, her violet eyes flashing. I work harder than any of you. I'm smarter than all of you combined. And one day, I'll prove it. For a moment, silence fell over the group. Then Bryn laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. Listen to it, boys. The little freak thinks she's people. He stepped closer, towering over her. You'll never be one of us. You'll never belong anywhere. You're nothing but a mistake. Zara felt something stir within her, a strange energy she'd never felt before. Her vision blurred, and for a split second, she swore she saw tendrils of light dancing around her fingers. But before she could process what was happening, Bryn shoved her hard. She stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet. As she fell, her head struck the edge of a nearby console with a sickening crack. Pain exploded behind her eyes, and the world went dark. When Zara regained consciousness, she was lying in the med bay, the sterile white ceiling swimming into focus above her. Dr. Lyra, the station's chief medical officer, leaned over her with a concerned expression. Easy there, Dr. Lyra said softly. You took quite a hit. Zara tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced her back down. What happened? Dr. Lyra's expression darkened. According to Bryn and his friends, you became agitated and accidentally injured yourself. But given the nature of your injuries and your unique physiology, I have my doubts about their story. Zara closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. It was always the same. No matter what happened, she was always the one at fault. Always the troublemaker, the misfit, the freak. Zara, Dr. Lyra said gently, I know it's not easy for you here, but you have to be careful. Your hybrid nature makes you different, and people fear what they don't understand. I didn't ask to be born this way, Zara whispered. Dr. Lyra sighed. I know, but you're stronger than you realize. One day, you'll find your place in this universe. Until then, keep your head down and stay out of trouble. As the doctor moved away to check on other patients, Zara stared at her hands, remembering the strange energy she'd felt just before blacking out. Had it been real, or just a product of her stressed mind? Little did she know, deep within her unique genetic makeup, ancient powers were beginning to stir. Powers that would soon change not only her life, but the fate of the entire galaxy. The journey of the outcast was about to begin, and the universe would never be the same. The discovery. Weeks passed, and life on Outpost Sigma 9 continued its monotonous rhythm. Zara threw herself into her work, taking on extra shifts and the most challenging repair jobs. It was easier to focus on broken machines than to dwell on her broken life. One evening, as the station's artificial day cycle dimmed to simulate night, Zara found herself in a rarely used storage bay on the lowest level. She was searching for spare parts to repair an old communications array when something caught her eye. A faint blue glow emanating from behind a stack of crates. Curiosity piqued, Zara carefully made her way through the clutter. As she rounded the corner, her breath caught in her throat. There, half buried under years of accumulated junk, was a small egg-shaped object. Its surface was covered in intricate, swirling patterns that pulsed with an ethereal light. "What are you?" Zara whispered, reaching out to touch it. The moment her fingers made contact, a jolt of energy surged through her body. The strange object hummed to life, its glow intensifying. Zara tried to pull away, but she found herself frozen in place, her mind flooded with a torrent of images and sensations. She saw vast, shimmering cities floating in space, creatures of pure energy dancing among the stars, and great battles that raged across entire galaxies. And through it all, she felt a presence, ancient, powerful, and somehow familiar. When the vision finally faded, Zara found herself on her knees, gasping for breath. The egg-shaped artifact had gone dark, but she could still feel its energy pulsing in sync with her own heartbeat. That wasn't Andromedan or human technology, she muttered, her mind racing. What is this thing? Before she could ponder further, an alarm blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the storage bay in an eerie glow. "Attention all personnel," the station's AI announced, its usually calm voice tinged with urgency. "Unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill. All non-essential personnel report to designated safety zones immediately." Zara's heart raced. In all her years on Sigma 9, there had never been an unknown contact, let alone a potential threat. Without thinking, she scooped up the artifact and tucked it into her tool belt. Something told her she couldn't leave it behind. As she raced through the corridors towards the control room, chaos erupted around her. People were running in all directions, some panicking, others trying to maintain order. When she finally reached her destination, she found Chief Engineer Raxon barking orders at a frantic crew. "Don't care how you do it. Just get those shields up to full power." He turned as Zara entered, his cybernetic eye whirring. "You, half-breed. Make yourself useful and get to auxiliary power control. We're going to need every scrap of energy we can muster." Zara nodded and sprinted towards the auxiliary control room. As she ran, she felt the artifact at her hip grow warm. A tingling sensation spread through her body, and suddenly, her senses seemed sharper, her reflexes quicker. She shook her head, trying to focus on the task at hand. The auxiliary control room was deserted when she arrived. Zara's fingers flew over the console, rerouting power and optimizing systems with a speed and precision that surprised even her. As she worked, a holographic display flickered to life, showing the space around the station. What Zara saw made her blood run cold. A fleet of ships unlike anything she'd ever seen before surrounded Sigma 9. They were massive, their hulls black as the void of space, with pulsing veins of red energy running along their surface. As she watched, they opened fire. The station shuddered under the assault. Zara gripped the console to keep her balance, her mind racing. They were outgunned, outmatched, and had nowhere to run. Fear gripped her heart, but then, the artifact at her hip began to vibrate intensely. Without thinking, Zara pulled it out and held it in her palm. The moment she did, energy surged through her body once more. But this time, it didn't stop. It kept building, growing, until she felt like she might burst. Instinctively, Zara raised her free hand towards the holographic display. To her shock, tendrils of blue energy shot from her fingertips, weaving through the air and into the station's systems. Suddenly, she could feel every circuit, every power conduit, every scrap of technology on Sigma-9, as if it were an extension of her own body. With a thought, she redirected power, strengthened the shields, and optimized weapon systems beyond their normal capabilities. The station's defenses flared to life with newfound strength, pushing back against the alien assault. Zara gasped, overwhelmed by the sensation. She could hear the surprised shouts of the crew in the main control room through the comm system, their amazement at the station's sudden surge in power. But the alien ships weren't backing down. They intensified their attack, concentrating their fire on one section of the station. Zara felt the strain on the shields, the buckling of hull plating. She poured more energy into the defenses, drawing from reserves she didn't know she had. As she pushed herself to the limit, something else awakened within her. The human and Andromedan parts of her DNA seemed to resonate with the artifact's energy, unlocking hidden potential. In her mind's eye, Zara saw complex equations and alien technology she somehow understood intuitively. With this new knowledge, she began to modify the station's systems on the fly. The shields adapted, becoming more resilient. The weapons recalibrated, finding weak points in the alien ship's armor. For a moment, it seemed like they might have a chance, but then, the largest of the alien vessels moved into position. Its hull split open, revealing a weapon of terrifying proportions. As it charged up, Zara realized with horror that a single blast from that cannon would obliterate Sigma-9 and everyone on it. Time seemed to slow down. Zara looked at the artifact in her hand, then at the holographic display showing the impending doom. She thought of all the people on the station, even those who had treated her cruelly. They didn't deserve to die. Taking a deep breath, Zara closed her eyes and embraced the power flowing through her. She didn't fully understand it, but she knew, somehow, that it was meant for her, that it was part of her heritage, her destiny. "I won't let them win," she whispered, her voice gaining strength. "I won't let fear and hatred destroy everything. Not again." As the alien weapon reached full charge, Zara opened her eyes. They glowed with an otherworldly light, and the air around her crackled with energy. With a cry that echoed through the station's comm system, she unleashed the full force of her newfound power. A wave of blue energy erupted from Sigma-9, engulfing the alien fleet. For a moment, everything went white. And then, the battle was about to take an unexpected turn, and Zara's journey of self-discovery was only just beginning. The confrontation. As the blinding light faded, Zara blinked, her vision slowly returning. The holographic display flickered back to life, revealing a scene that took her breath away. The alien ships hung motionless in space, their menacing red energy veins now dark and lifeless. The massive weapon that had been poised to destroy Sigma-9 was nothing more than a floating hulk of metal. What did I do?" Zara whispered, staring at her hands in disbelief. Before she could process what had happened, the door to the auxiliary control room burst open. Chief Engineer Raxon stormed in, his face a mix of confusion and anger. "What in the name of all the stars did you do, girl?" he demanded, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned the room. "The whole station just lit up like a supernova, and now those ships out there are dead in the water. Explain yourself." Zara opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? Her eyes darted to the artifact, still clutched tightly in her hand. Raxon followed her gaze, his organic eye widening as he noticed the strange object. "What is that? Where did you get it?" Before Zara could answer, alarms blared once again. The station's eye spoke, its voice urgent. Warning. Unknown energy signature detected. Multiple teleportation events in progress. Raxon cursed, activating his comlink. All security teams, battle stations. We've got intruders. He turned back to Zara, his expression hardening. I don't know what you've done or what that thing is, but right now, we've got bigger problems. Can you do whatever it is you did again? Zara looked at the artifact, then back at Raxon. For the first time in her life, she saw something other than disdain in the chief engineer's eyes. Was it respect? Fear? She couldn't tell. I think so, she said, surprised by the confidence in her own voice. Raxon nodded curtly. Then come with me. We're going to need every advantage we can get. As they raced through the corridors towards the main control room, Zara could hear the sounds of battle echoing through the station. Energy weapons discharged, and the clash of metal on metal rang out. The invaders had made it aboard. They burst into the control room to find it in chaos. Screens showed security footage from all over the station, each one depicting scenes of conflict. The alien intruders were tall, their bodies covered in sleek, black armor that seemed to absorb light. They moved with inhuman speed and precision, easily overwhelming Sigma-9's security forces. They're heading for the central core, one of the technicians shouted. If they reach it, they'll have control of the entire station. Raxon turned to Zara, his expression grim. Whatever you can do, kid, now's the time. Zara nodded, closing her eyes and focusing on the energy within her. She could feel it pulsing, ready to be unleashed. But this time, she didn't let it explode outward. Instead, she directed it with purpose, imagining it flowing through the station's systems. The control room's lights flickered, and for a moment, everything went dark. Then, with a low hum, the systems came back online. But something was different. The displays showed the station's layout, but now overlaid with pulsing blue lines of energy, the same color as the artifact's glow. I've connected myself to the station's systems, Zora explained, her voice resonating with a new authority. I can see everything, control everything. Without waiting for a response, she got to work. Her fingers danced over the holographic interfaces, locking down sections of the station, rerouting power, and activating dormant defense systems. The alien intruders suddenly found themselves trapped, cut off from their objectives by impenetrable energy barriers. But the invaders were resourceful. They began to adapt, using strange devices to bypass Zora's defenses. It became a battle of wits and technology, with Zora pushing her newfound abilities to their limits. As she fought to keep the aliens at bay, fragments of knowledge flashed through her mind. She saw glimpses of the artifact's origins, of an ancient race that had once ruled the galaxy. She realized that the power flowing through her was more than just energy. It was the legacy of a long-lost civilization. The battle raged on, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. Zara's control over the station was impressive, but the aliens' technology was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was a stalemate, and time was running out. Suddenly, a new alert blared through the control room. One of the technicians called out, panic in his voice. They've breached the central core. They're attempting to override our systems. Zara's heart raced. She knew that if the aliens gained control of the core, all would be lost. Without thinking, she made a decision that would change everything. I'm going down there, she announced, already moving towards the door. Raxon grabbed her arm, his face a mask of disbelief. Are you insane? Those things will tear you apart. Zara met his gaze, her violet eyes glowing with determination. I'm the only one who has a chance. Trust me. For a moment, Raxon hesitated. Then, to Zora's surprise, he nodded. Go. We'll try to buy you as much time as we can. As Zara raced towards the central core, she felt the artifact's energy surging through her. Her body moved with newfound grace and speed, easily outpacing the station's security teams. When she encountered groups of the alien intruders, she instinctively channeled the energy, creating barriers that pushed them back, or short-circuiting their weapons with a thought. Finally, she reached the entrance to the central core. The massive doors had been blown open, and the acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled the air. Zara took a deep breath, clutching the artifact tightly, and stepped inside. The scene that greeted her was one of controlled chaos. A group of aliens surrounded the core itself, their strange devices interfacing with the station's systems. At the center stood a figure different from the rest, taller, with armor that seemed to shift and move like liquid shadow. As Zara entered, the alien leader turned, its featureless helmet regarding her with what she could only imagine was surprise. "So," a voice resonated in her mind, deep and ancient. "The Precursor's power has awakened in you. Little hybrid. How? Unexpected." Zara stood her ground, the artifact pulsing in sync with her racing heart. "Who are you? What do you want with our station?" The alien leader tilted its head, and Zara had the unsettling feeling it was amused. "We are the Void Collective, child. We seek what is ours by right, the legacy of those who came before. The power you now wield so clumsily." With a gesture, the leader sent its subordinates advancing toward Zora. She raised her hands, ready to defend herself, but doubt crept into her mind. Could she really stand against these advanced beings? As the aliens closed in, time seemed to slow. Zara felt the artifact grow warm in her hand, and suddenly she understood. The power wasn't just within the artifact, it was within her. It had always been a part of her, a legacy of both her human and Andromedan heritage, awakened by the ancient technology. With newfound clarity, Zara embraced her true nature. Energy exploded from her body, filling the core chamber with blinding light. The advancing aliens were thrown back, their weapons and armor shorting out. The leader stood its ground, raising a hand wreathed in dark energy. "Impressive, but futile. You cannot hope to control such power. Surrender, and we may yet spare this station and its inhabitants." Zara met the alien's gaze, her voice steady and clear. "This station, these people, they may not have always been kind to me, but they're under my protection now. I won't let you harm them." With that declaration, Zara unleashed the full extent of her power. The artifact in her hand shattered, its energy merging completely with her own. The air crackled with electricity as two ancient forces clashed, the legacy of the Precursors against the dark energy of the Void Collective. As the battle reached its climax, Zara realized that this confrontation was about more than just Sigma-9. It was a turning point in a cosmic conflict that had been raging for eons. And she, a once despised hybrid, now stood at the center of it all. The fate of not just the station, but perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance as Zara faced off against the leader of the Void Collective. The true test of her newfound powers and her determination was about to begin. The awakening. The central core chamber of Sigma-9 became a maelstrom of energy as Zara and the leader of the Void Collective clashed. Tendrils of blue light intertwined with writhing shadows, creating a dazzling yet terrifying spectacle. The very fabric of space seemed to warp around them, reality bending under the strain of their battle. Zara felt the power coursing through her veins, raw and untamed. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. She instinctively shaped the energy, forming shields to deflect the dark attacks of her opponent and launching her own salvos of brilliant light. The Void Collective leader was relentless, its attacks growing more ferocious with each passing moment. "You cannot hope to master that power, child." Its voice resonated in Zora's mind. "It will consume you, just as it did the Precursors." But even as doubt tried to creep into her thoughts, Zara felt something else, a presence warm and comforting. In her mind's eye, she saw fleeting images, a human woman with kind eyes, an Andromedan with scholarly features, her parents. "You are more than the sum of your parts, Zora," her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Your dual heritage is not a weakness, but a strength. With renewed determination, Zara pushed back against the Void Collective's assault. She began to understand that the key to controlling her power wasn't in subduing it, but in embracing it fully, both the human and Andromedan aspects of her being. As the battle raged on, the station shuddered around them. Alarms blared, warning of critical system failures. Zara realized that their conflict was tearing Sigma-9 apart. If she didn't end this soon, everyone on board would perish. Drawing upon reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed, Zara focused her energy into a singular purpose. She envisioned the station, its people, the very space around them, and willed it to be protected. A sphere of blue light expanded from her body, pushing back the darkness. The Void Collective leader staggered, its shadowy form flickering. "Impossible," it hissed. "You cannot." But Zara didn't relent. The sphere continued to grow, encompassing the entire core chamber, then spreading throughout the station. As it passed, damaged systems repaired themselves, injured crew members felt their wounds heal, and the invading aliens found their technology failing. The leader of the Void Collective launched a final desperate attack, hurling a lance of pure darkness at Zara's heart. But the energy shield she had created held firm, absorbing the attack and turning it into harmless light. With a final surge of power, Zara pushed outward, her energy engulfing not just the station, but the disabled alien fleet beyond. In that moment, she saw everything with perfect clarity. The intricate web of life and technology, the delicate balance of the universe itself. The Void Collective ships vanished in a flash of light, vanished some distant corner of space. Their leader, now looking diminished and almost pitiful, fell to its knees before Zara. "How?" it asked, its mental voice now tinged with awe and fear. "How can you control it so completely?" Zara looked down at her former adversary, feeling not triumph, but a profound sense of understanding. "Because I'm not trying to control it," she said softly. "I'm part of it, just as it's part of me. This power doesn't belong to humans, or Andromedans, or even the precursors. It belongs to all of us, to the universe itself." With those words, the last of the dark energy dissipated from the Void Collective leader's form, revealing a being that looked almost fragile. It gazed up at Zara with what could only be described as wonder. "Perhaps," it said, "we have been wrong all this time. Perhaps there is another way." Before Zara could respond, the being vanished in a soft implosion of light, leaving behind only a small crystalline object, a token of surrender, or perhaps a key to future understanding. As the energy field Zara had created slowly dissipated, she became aware of her surroundings once more. The central core of Sigma-9 hummed with renewed life, its systems functioning better than ever before. Through her connection to the station, she could sense the amazement and relief of the crew throughout. Exhausted but exhilarated, Zara made her way back to the control room. As the doors slid open, she was met with a sight she never thought she'd see. The entire command crew, led by Chief Engineer Raxon, staring at her with a mixture of awe, gratitude, and not a small amount of fear. Raxon stepped forward, his gruff demeanor softened by what Zara realized was respect. We owe you an apology, kid," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "We were wrong about you. All this time, we thought your hybrid nature made you weak, but it made you strong enough to save us all." Zara felt tears welling up in her eyes, years of loneliness and rejection washing away in this moment of acceptance. But she also felt the weight of her newfound power and understanding settling on her shoulders. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady despite her emotions. "But this is just the beginning. What happened here, what I've become, it's bigger than just our station. The universe is vaster and more complex than we ever imagined, and there's so much we need to learn." As if in response to her words, the small crystal left behind by the Void Collective leader began to glow in her hand. Within its facets, Zora could see glimpses of distant worlds, ancient technologies, and cosmic wonders beyond imagination. She looked up at the crew, at the people who had once shunned her but now looked to her with hope and expectation. "We have a choice to make," she said. "We can stay here, try to return to our old lives, or we can embark on a journey to understand these powers, to explore the legacy of the precursors, and maybe, just maybe, help shape the future of our galaxy." The control room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Then, slowly, Raxon stepped forward. "I think I speak for all of us when I say, lead the way, Captain Zara." A chorus of agreement rose from the crew. Zara felt a surge of emotion. Pride, excitement, and a touch of nervousness. She gazed out at the star-filled viewport, the crystal pulsing gently in her hand, guiding her towards humanity's next great adventure. "Well then," she said, a smile spreading across her face, "let's see what's out there." As Sigma 9 hummed to life around her, preparing for a journey into the unknown, Zara realized that she had finally found her place in the universe, not as a human, not as an Andromedan, but as something beautifully, uniquely in between. A bridge between worlds, a harbinger of a new era of understanding and exploration. The story of the once ridiculed hybrid girl was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The journey begins. The days following the confrontation with the Void Collective were a whirlwind of activity aboard Sigma 9. The station, once a neglected outpost on the fringes of human space, now hummed with renewed purpose and energy. Zara found herself at the center of it all, her new role as leader both exhilarating and daunting. As the crew prepared for their upcoming journey, Zara spent hours in deep meditation, exploring the vast well of knowledge that had been unlocked within her. The crystal left behind by the Void Collective leader proved to be a key, opening doors to understanding that she had never imagined possible. One evening, as she sat cross-legged in her quarters, the crystal floating before her eyes, Zara gasped as a flood of information surged through her mind. She saw star maps of uncharted regions, glimpsed technologies that defied her current understanding of physics, and felt the echoes of ancient civilizations long lost to time. A soft knock at her door broke her concentration. "Come in," she called, the crystal settling gently into her palm. Chief Engineer Raxon entered, his cybernetic eye whirring as it adjusted to the dim light. "How's it going, Captain?" he asked, the title still sounding strange when directed at her. Zara smiled, standing to face him. "It's overwhelming," she admitted. "There's so much to learn, so much we never knew was out there." Raxon nodded, his expression thoughtful. "The crew's almost ready. We've retrofitted the station with the best FTL drive we could cobble together, based on some of those designs you shared. But," he hesitated, "are you sure about this, Zara? We're heading into completely uncharted territory. There's no going back." Zara looked down at the crystal in her hand, then back up at Raxon. "I'm sure," she said firmly. "This is bigger than just us, Raxon. The things I've seen, the knowledge we've gained, it could change everything. And if we don't go, if we don't try to understand it, who knows what might happen." The Void Collective was just the beginning. Raxon's face broke into a rare smile. "That's what I hoped you'd say. Well then, Captain, we await your orders." As Raxon left, Zara turned to look out the viewport. The stars seemed to shine brighter now, calling to her. She closed her eyes, reaching out with her newfound senses. She could feel the pulse of distant worlds, the ebb and flow of cosmic energies. And somewhere out there, she sensed others, beings like her, awakening to their true potential. The next morning, Zara stood in the control room, facing the assembled crew of Sigma 9. Faces that had once looked at her with scorn or indifference now gazed at her with respect and anticipation. "Today," she began, her voice clear and strong, "we embark on a journey unlike any in human history. We carry with us not just the hopes and dreams of our own people, but the legacy of civilizations long past. Our mission is to explore, to learn, and perhaps most importantly, to bridge the gaps between the many peoples of this vast universe." She held up the crystal, which pulsed with a soft light. This will be our guide, leading us to places of power and knowledge left behind by the precursors. But make no mistake, we will face challenges, dangers we can't even imagine. The Void Collective may be gone, but there are other forces out there, some who may see us as a threat. Zora paused, looking each crew member in the eye. I won't lie to you. This journey will change us. It may change the very course of history. But I believe that together we can face whatever the universe throws at us. Are you with me? A resounding cheer filled the control room. Zara felt a surge of emotion, pride mixed with a deep sense of responsibility. She turned to the main console, placing her hand on the crystal. It flared to life, interfacing with Sigma-9's systems. Plot a course, she commanded, the star map before her shifting to highlight their first destination. Let's see what's out there. With a deep, resonant hum, Sigma-9's new FTL drive engaged. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of light, and then, with a flash, they were gone, hurtling through space towards the unknown. As they traveled, Zara felt a change coming over her. The powers within her were growing, evolving. She began to see patterns in the fabric of space-time, to understand the fundamental forces of the universe in ways she had never imagined. But with this growth came new challenges. Sometimes she would wake in the night, her body glowing with barely contained energy, strange visions flashing before her eyes. She knew that mastering these abilities would be a lifelong journey. Weeks turned into months as Sigma-9 journeyed deeper into uncharted space. They encountered wonders beyond imagination. Ancient space stations that dwarfed entire planets, nebula that sang with cosmic harmonies, and artifacts of power that hinted at the true scope of the precursor's civilization. But they also faced dangers, hostile alien races that saw them as invaders, natural phenomena that defied the laws of physics as they knew them, and always the lurking threat of the Void Collective's return. Through it all, Zora led with a wisdom beyond her years, her unique perspective as a hybrid allowing her to bridge gaps and find solutions where others saw only conflict. The crew of Sigma-9, once a motley collection of misfits and outcasts, became a family united in their quest for knowledge and understanding. As they approached yet another uncharted star system, Zara stood at the viewport, the crystal humming softly in her hand. She thought back to the lonely, ridiculed girl she had once been, and marveled at the journey that had brought her here. Captain, Raxon's voice came from behind her. Long-range sensors are picking up something big, like nothing we've ever seen before. Zara turned, a smile playing on her lips. Well then, she said, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of discovery. Let's go say hello. As Sigma-9 moved forward into the unknown, Zara felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had found her place in the universe, not as human, not as Andromedan, but as something new. A bridge between worlds, a guardian of ancient knowledge, and a beacon of hope for the future. The girl who had once been mocked and shunned now stood at the forefront of humanity's greatest adventure, and her story, like the vast expanse of space around them, was only just beginning. The end, or perhaps just the beginning of a greater journey.